We've come back with a vengeance, and so has the botanical garden, and our 6 different types of figs that have just taken off. Blue Java, which we've been growing since day 1. It's really hard to deny that thing from being able to do its thing. So this is more about the salvation of local timber. Welcome to Other Side Adventure Park again. It's been a few years since you've been here. We've done a lot of cool things. We got swamped by the storm. The water ended up coming up all the way over this berm, flooded over the highway here. One of the coolest parts about the property is actually being right here on the highway. We have one of the largest highway frontages of any business in the Keys, so second only to the Marathon Airport. It was an old industrial fish farm. It's 49 acres of a commercial industrial complex, but we have a 7-acre tidal lagoon that used to be excavated for limestone for the roads. But this entire berm, it used to look like a scene out of The Walking Dead, and the building was a scene out of Breaking Bad. The place was super gnarly. So again, it was like a commercial rehabilitation and try to revive the land back to what it was. So we took this old barbed wire fence down. It was just over a quarter mile of barbed wire fence. And we brought in a living fence mixed with natives, tropicals, edibles. So we have 2 different types of bougainvillea. A variety of different variegated agave, native century plant, and then you'll like this one. Why not make
look at this.
A nice edible living fence? So, but you've got, you know, these vicious little spikes right here, so be my guest, get up in there and try to climb over that one.
Ooh, living fence, huh?
And then as you're walking along, try to get in there, and they're delicious. Not just trying to reinstate the property, and you know, we're taking care of commercial needs in a natural means by putting in this native fence. It also improves our property value. It improves the entire highway frontage as you're coming into Marathon, and we did it through a form of community engagement. So we brought in, for our Earth Day festival, a couple of amazing garden gurus, kind of plant ninjas from up in Fort Myers, the whole Fruitscape squad, and then we picked up, I think it was, in the end it was about 1,500 native wildflowers and sort of butterfly host plants, pollinator friendly plants. So we did our native and kind of exotic living fence on the outside, and then I'll take you over to the inside and we'll do a quick walk and I'll show you all these. But right here we can look, and there's blue porter weeds, there's blanket flowers, you've got fakahatchee grass, you've got different coastal grasses, and these are just starting to flourish now. There's some kind of wild weeds and grasses mixed in, but that's how it should be out here in this environment. So this used to be just a giant scarified, scraped down lime rock with you know, terrible excuse for what you would call soil. And now we've turned it into a quarter-mile pollinator haven with a living fence with fruit and all sorts of cool flowers on the outside, and it's only going to continue to flourish. So these were just tiny. So when we put these in, those were probably 1-gallon pots, you know, size of,
Kicking butt. Wow.
yeah, like a softball, maybe a basketball, and now they're just going off. Of course, you got the prickly pear. The prickly pear is vicious, so that one alone in itself is going to be a great protector and also another fruit provider. So now on the inside here, we got this whole berm. Part of the plan, you know, we started a nonprofit after the hurricane. It's called the Florida Keys Community Center. And a couple of the things that we've always done here at the park is really focus on kind of community engagement, working with locals to kind of spread a little bit more about sustainability and knowledge of, you know, how to protect our local environment. The most popular thing to do at your house is to graze your entire landscape, put a bunch of lime rock fill in, and then cover it with 57 stone or P-rock, which is great for just about drainage until you get hurricanes, and then there's no room for water to be absorbed by anything. There's no natural protection, and oftentimes you're going to get just routed out and dug out with soil erosion because it can't handle that much water. So the park came through the storm. You can kind of still see a little bit of remnants of mangrove damage across the lagoon there, and we'll take a little walk into the hammock in a second. But as a whole, with the water coming up about this high, 140-mile-an-hour winds, because of our natural buffer and protection with, you know, about a quarter-mile of mangroves to the Atlantic Ocean, tons of different swales, tons of different barriers of hedging of, you know, mangroves, black mangrove, red mangrove, white mangrove, buttonwoods, and then kind of maintaining really nice bases on all of our berms and different kind of buffers around the property. We came out like champs. There was piles of mulch that looked like snow drifts in different corners. A lot of mulch floated across the street, but as a whole, we bounced back in about 2 to 3 months, and all of our plants were coming right back with, you know, we had flowers within 6 months for the bees. The bees, a lot of them, we had to take up to the Everglades and put right on the edge of the watering canals up there to kind of survive off of wildflower, like Spanish needle and stuff like that. But all of my coconut palms, every coconut palm on this property was planted when we first came in from seed. Kind of a variety of maypans and then different local random stuff that I picked up. But this berm right here was what we did this year. So we brought in, I think we had about 700 people over the course of 2 days, little pop-up bar, 2 food trucks with all sorts of good local food. And then we probably had 200 kids with shovels up here planting all of these little native pollinator friendly plants and native wildflowers. So the Bahama firebush, the gaillardia, that blanket flower, the blue porter weeds, the mealy grass, the beauty berries, and then all the other goods. So again, the Fruitscape squad from up in Fort Myers did an amazing job helping this out, because at the same time that this was going on, we had this giant art installation going on where I get all these guys that are, you know, world famous muralists coming in and doing very provocative murals about, you know, mixing kind of urban effects on the environment with, you know, really cool environmental pieces, you know, turtles and sawfish and flamingos and manatees and stuff like that. You know, this is another example of kind of like social sort of awareness things that we have, and this was actually the last Cuban chug that made it in right before the Wet Foot Dry Foot Act went away. So we have this amazing history of Bahamian and Cuban people right here in the Florida Keys, and I mean, it is rich, it's cool, and it's something that people don't really embrace or talk about. You know, the Cuban immigration thing, especially in this day and age, is a pretty hot debate, immigration as a whole. But back in the day, you could get on a flight to Cuba from Key West, 20 minutes over there, you're having mojitos, shaking up, and you're sitting at a bar with Ernest Hemingway or any of these really cool art, intellectual, you know, knowledgeable people. So these guys left, I think it was 2015 and 2016 maybe. They left on Christmas Day, and they took 9 guys on this boat for 9 days. They left just next to Varadero, Cuba, and they landed on Grassy Key. And they got out, they had, you know, male prophylactics, using them as plastic bags to hide their cell phones and their jewelry and their valuables and stuff like that, you know, their most prized heirloom possessions. But you have a tin boat, and it looks like this was, you know, sawn Aussie pine. You have hand-whittled Aussie pine spars, your mast and your boom. And they told me that halfway through the journey, they actually got stranded on Sal Bank, right in between us and the Bahamas. And they found a giant 55-gallon drum of tar, and they sealed and dried out their boat and sealed the rest of the seams with tar that they found on the beach, and then decided, you know what, screw it, we're going for it, and took a beam reach straight across the Gulf or the Florida Straits and landed on Grassy Key. So to think about 9 dudes, I know what I was teaching for kite surfing lessons during that time, and it was blowing about 25. And if you've ever been in the Gulf Stream when it's blowing 25 out of the east, it is not a calm and mellow moment. So to be in this thing, you got to think it's dedication, and it's a story that is worth telling. So I salvaged the boat because they were going to take it out and burn it and scrap it. And this actually floated around in the hurricane on the property here. We picked it up and off of the berm, got it right back here. And every year these guys that came over come back, visit, take another photo, and kind of tell me little stories about what they've done and their successes in life in the United States. So working with local Cuban families to try to, you know, maintain a quality of life and a history of culture down here, working with local Bahamian folks that, you know, we used to be the interchangeable families of, you know, Florida Keys people and Bahamians. That was, you know, part of the richest history of this place, and maintaining it and keeping the storyline alive to me is very important, and it's a crucial part of what we can do at the park, aside from showing people a good time, growing awesome food, and now hopefully giving them a great place to eat, drink, and buy some fun toys. So let's keep going. This is awesome. This is giant bay cedar. So a lot of natives for the hotel. You see the beehives back here just got absolutely thrashed after the hurricane. There's still frames around.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Evidence of.
There's poisonwood. So this though, like if you bought this at a native nursery, I mean, this bush right here would be probably like, you know, $1,000.
Wow.
So
it's an old specimen then.
yeah, they're fantastic, and you know the quality of, you know, native habitat back here is just unrivaled because nobody's allowed back here. And all we really do is bring back our summer camp kids and different educational programs. You know, you've got upland red mangrove right next to upland black mangrove right next to bay cedar, and poisonwood. In case you're familiar with poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac, you know, I'm gonna butcher the word, but the active oil in it is like urushiol oil or something like that.
Urushiol, yeah.
Yeah, and this has the same one, but it's just gnarly in the leaves and the sap and the bark. It's all across the plant. But in terms of flowering, it is a very important integral part of the native ecosystem. You know, the white-crowned pigeon is one of the local endangered bird species, and it I guess the fatty acids that exist in the berries that come out of this thing are just absolutely vital for this white-crowned pigeon to survive off of. And there's a couple different migratory bird species that come to the Keys and the different tropics explicitly for the fruit that comes from the poisonwood. And the yin to the yang of the poisonwood is you got gumbo limbo trees and poisonwood that you're usually going to find in their natural habitat right next to each other in the upland hammock area. And if you get poisonwood, you find a gumbo limbo tree, you peel some bark off of it, and when you get the slimy part of the bark on the inside, it actually pulls all of the toxins from the poisonwood out of your skin, and it's the best possible remedy. So wow. An old Rasta in the Bahamas is like, hey man, you know, you gotta drink the gumbo limbo tea if you wanna fix yourself up. And I'm like, this dude's far out, I don't believe it. And sure enough, I had these boils on myself for, you know, weeks on end, and I'm about to go get a steroid shot. It's my last result, I don't wanna do it. I'm like, you know what, I'll do what he said, and I started putting patches of gumbo limbo and drinking the tea. Within like 3 days, they're all gone. So far out.
That's epic.
Been back here 1,000 times and I've never seen this thing in bloom. And it looks like it's had better years, but you know, looking at the trunk of the tree right there, I did know that it grows in like a coastal kind of high upland hammock. And that is a Geiger tree flower. So it's pretty damn cool. The hives that we keep at my house, you know, we've, for the most part, the honeybee that we work with is an Italian bee. They're very docile. They do a lot of the work without a suit now. You just bring in a little smoke from a coconut husk and that's all you need. But we keep the bees out here in the hammock. One thing that we've had a lot of issues with is because of Homestead and the Redlands having so much commercial agriculture these days, the amount of pesticide and chemical usage that's going on in the fields out there has created a lot of systemic diseases within the bees, everything from K-wing to hive beetles and different mites and issues that they've started to really have problems with. You know, everyone's like, orange blossom honey, oh my gosh. And it's like, if you did the chemical composition of orange blossom honey, it's probably the most, you know, unnatural, toxic thing. Same with almond groves out in California and all that. So the beauty of our land is having everything completely untouched. This is about as native, raw, organic as it could possibly get. But all of these different beekeepers are coming down here from the Redlands now because they know that if they put their bees into a certain grove up there for 6 months to, you know, get paid or work with the local farmers to pollinate their groves, that all of a sudden they're having population issues and they're struggling. And even though they're getting, you know, say organic mango orchards or avocado honey or stuff like that, the bees are having a lot of issues. And then they'll bring them down here for another 3 or 4 months to try and revive them in a more natural state and let their populations kind of build up and gain strength and come back to life. But in the process of doing that, it ended up spreading a lot of issues and diseases to our bees here. So John, who I work with, we would normally have anywhere from 30 to 50 hives back here. And like I said earlier, after the storm, we ended up bringing them all up to right on the edge of the Everglades, right on the canals where all of our water's getting flushed down. And we would post up, 50 to 300 hives out there to thrive off of Spanish needle and the different wildflowers that we would get out there. And a really cool story is one day we worked with a couple Venezuelan guys who are fantastic beekeepers, and somebody kept coming out and knocking over all these hives. And we couldn't figure out why the hives were just, spread apart. Looks like somebody just came in with a baseball bat and was knocking them over, ripping them apart, shredding them to pieces. It's like right on the edge of the Everglades. Who could possibly be doing this? Nobody comes back here unless you're looking to go mudding or, trying to test the water quality in the water canals. So one night the two guys stay out there and they hear some commotion going on. They jump out. All of a sudden they start screaming, "Un oso, un oso!" And it was a giant bear. And we had bears just on the edge of South Florida and the Everglades coming down to the Keys. And they were going in and getting all Winnie the Pooh with the honey. It was pretty cool. So one thing that we've done over the years is developed an incredible relationship with a lot of guys up in the Redlands. There's amazing fruit growers that have really helped to push this whole thing that I've learned so much about over the years. And every time I get up to the mainland, which is rare, but I do work with a lot of different plant material guys and working and expanding the presence of fruit trees down here, and an edible food culture is something that I've found as a awkward life mission of mine now. So I always try to have at least a reasonable variety of fruit trees here available at the park. If we don't actually propagate and make our own banana pups and stuff like that, we've got a nice variety of everything from red lady papayas, mulberries, star fruit, carambola, passion fruits, hog plums, guanabanas, sugar apples, and tons of little seeds that we've done. We also just got into the whole tower garden thing as a little exhibition over at the hotel, so we will have more things like fresh produce and farmers market style events that we'll be hosting here. But if you don't know about the pleasures of growing a fruit tree, please come by Other Side Adventure Park. We're mile marker 59. It's 59300. If you don't know the Florida Keys, everything runs on mile markers. And when you see the address as 59300, that means mile marker 59.3. We're on the ocean side in Grassy Key. Come by, buy a fruit tree, put it in the ground, let it grow, pull a piece off, eat it. Try not to smile. So, one thing I wanted to carve was kind of like with random scrap pieces. I've got a little steel saw with a little pointy blade on it, and we do a lot of stuff with the Coral Restoration Foundation, a lot of different ocean nonprofit companies down here. And I wanted to create like a coral installation where we had all these local corals that are endangered and bleaching right now and have certain diseases that are plaguing the reef, and do a whole wood installation with staghorn, elkhorn, and brain corals and this. And you get 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 hours into a project and your hands are sore, your fingers are bleeding, all of your fingers are black because you're dropping big logs on it. And I just don't have the time, unfortunately. That's really what I look forward to at one point when we catch up with all these things. It's taken a long time to figure out what it all is, but you got Cuban mahogany, mahogany. This is a sapodilla right here. You're going back through mahogany. This is actually rainbow eucalyptus.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, so once the bark comes off, you lose the most attractive and popular part of it, but you get left with an incredibly quality hardwood product that's fantastic. And this fell right on Sombrero Beach during the hurricane. And then you've got the Norfolk Island pine, which again, this is that softer wood, but you see the spalting in it. It comes out with the crazy colorations of the blue and the gray. Look like big flames. The Sawmill was an investment that kind of happened when we just started stockpiling wood, and I used to just get 2 or 3 logs at a time, bring them down to Stock Island just outside of Key West. And a very good friend and incredibly talented sawyer and wood craftsman, artist, woodworker, whatever you want to call him. He's insane. Him and his wife Jimmy and Karen Ray had a sawmill down there just outside of the Hogfish Bar and Grill, and you would never know that it's there. You wouldn't know in a million years. and he just saws all the wood that they cut down in Old Key West and cuts it up into usable planks and does incredible custom cabinetry, signage, stuff like that. He's like, Matt, I can't take anymore. We're busting at the gills. Half the island just fell down, so sorry, brother, you're on your own. And I start shopping, and I'm looking at Wood Miser, and they kind of had this flash sale going on with what was called an LT15 wide. So this can cut up to 20-foot long logs up to 35.5 inches wide. And down here, you don't exactly have lumber production with large, oaks and kind of the stuff that you might find up in North Florida or North Carolina, something like that, where you'd have more conventional pine lumber and things of that nature. So if I find a 35-inch mahogany, it's like, oh my God. And this thing is just an absolute beast, has been able to cut everything that we've had, and I've cut some old Dade County pine, which is just one of the hardest woods that you've ever seen. So when we do these mural events, we throw these mural festivals, and a lot of these guys, it's so cool working with these dudes. 10, 15 years ago, I remember running around a kiteboarding contest in Miami, and we would be on Miami Beach, and then we'd go out to some different bars and clubs, and we're out by this area called Wynwood. And back then it was, mostly like, homeless people sitting on the side of the road, sleeping. You're right next to Overtown, which is still a pretty seedy spot in Miami. But we're running around with backpacks full of spray paint cans, everybody doing their tags, and I was never very good at it, but you kind of ran in the same circles with athletes and artists. And then met a couple really cool ones that we kind of developed these lasting friendships over the year, and we talked about, let's throw some spray paint all over this rusty old fish farm down here, make it look a little bit cooler, a little bit more artistic, and see what we can pull off. And when we started doing these mural events, it started with just a few artists. Dave Lavernia, goes by Dave L, is one of my closest friends, and he's like, Matt, we could bring some guys down here and really make an impact and get some attention. And we just shot a show for PBS last month, and it's really kind of started to garner some interest. But we wanted to hit them all with a theme so we could take people around and kind of curate it on this half-mile loop around the lagoon. And we gave them, I don't want an artist to be told what to do, because it kind of takes away the expression of doing it, but we wanted them, hey, what can you do with the human effects on the environment, so to speak? It's kind of a pivotal cause and issue for our time and age. So Registered Artist is a local Miami guy, and he came up with this concept of, fracking and how we're destroying the earth with natural gas exploration and, oil drilling and all the things that we're doing with that. So he made this fantastic mural of the doctor, checking on the tonsils and the lifeblood of Mother Earth right here, and just cool, very provocative things that you're not fully pushing thoughts and concepts on people of what they need to do with their day-to-day life, but they come here and they see these cooler expressions of art, and it gives them a little chance to reflect and have a second thought about what they are doing, and perhaps maybe they could be doing more to keep places like this beautiful, raw, untouched, and as they're meant to be in their natural state, and how we can kind of coexist with business, capitalism, society, and the natural state of things. So all of the murals that you'll see on site have somewhat of a storyline like that, and we can go along and show you each one, but this one in particular I think is super cool because it really gets the point of that across. So very cool to have these guys down here, very cool to kind of be a little diamond in the rough for them to come and express themselves. A couple turtles you're going to see throughout the property, and there's some really cool different, how many times can you do a turtle? And the reality is, turns out it was a few, and each one kind of speaks its own. El Chianguri, if you see his Instagram tag right there, you can see some more of his work. But the photo of the turtle with the plastic straw through his nose came out just a few years ago and really started this whole drop the straw movement, lose the straw movement. And a lot of his works feature these, kind of energy aura fields that you're going to see around different things that he's depicting. Actually, the piece that we featured on PBS. So this was one of the first big murals that we did, and my buddy Dave and I were sitting around playing dominoes and drinking Cuban rum, and we're talking about flamingos and why you don't see them in the Keys anymore, because in the 1920s you could get $20 for a flamingo because they were sought after for their feathers and their hats in high fashion New York City. So Dave said he had to make a 40-foot high flamingo but kill it in honor of the idiots back in the day that called themselves conservationists, that were using local birds and animals and resources for high fashion. My name is Matt Sexton. We're on Grassy Key, and this is kind of a little island right here in the middle of the Keys that's become my home over the last decade. And it's very funny how things have come full circle for me. You know, my childhood dream was I grew up just outside of New York City, and I wanted to be a professional wakeboarder, kite surfer, anything I could do to be in the ocean, end up in the Caribbean somehow. And that was all I would tell kids as I was growing up. That was it. And so when I turned 17, I decided to drive down 95, get to Florida, and see what I could do with wakeboarding. And I ended up getting sponsored as an athlete for kite surfing. I ended up really getting into skydiving, kiteboarding, freediving, spearfishing, and I worked with a bunch of brands doing kind of lifestyle advertising, tourism marketing, and product development and exhibition, if you will, shooting for magazines and videos and stuff like that. The last 10 years was cool because I turned 26, I broke a lot of bones, kind of didn't walk for the better part of a year, and had some economic hardships because of the whole thing, and decided I needed to do something with a little bit more meaning and longevity, and try to not spend so much time in front of the camera, but curating an experience that had a little bit more impact than just getting a sick shot or having a cool adrenaline rush. So we stumbled on this property, and it was an old fish farm that we decided to turn into a wakeboard park. And in the process, we became the only licensed amusement park in all of the Florida Keys. And all of the different experiences that I've ended up having and crafting here are simply by turning the wheel and moving from one foot in front of the other, one process to the next. And the journey that it's taken me on is something that I wouldn't give up for anything in the world. And the goal and the desire to make it successful and financially viable has been just as much of a challenge as landing the next trick or riding the next hurricane, catching the next big wave. And so it kind of kept going for me like that, and trying to do it in a way that stayed on an ethical and positive mission for me was even more challenging than that, because it's easy to go anywhere and make money and do something if you don't have a soul and you're willing to just exploit what you can for it. But it's significantly more challenging to change an entire system and try to do it in a way that will hopefully have some lasting and extended change for the future. So Keys Cable started exactly that, just a action sports amusement park that we changed that name over to an action sports eco park and really started focusing on ecotourism. And 15 years ago, you saw us on the side of the shuttle in Times Square going through New York City with Visit St. Pete Clearwater. And then I've done a lot of tourism campaigns for Visit the Florida Keys and the Tourism Development Council of the Florida Keys, Visit Florida, all involving water sports and throwing big smiles and shakas out and looking next to white beaches and clean blue water. And now my job on a daily basis is to bring people in, do just that, make them smile, have a good time, show them a fun, positive experience. And during their time interacting with us, whether it's at this amusement park, in our garden, throwing axes, learning about local woods, trying tropical fruits, or now hosting them for an extended stay at our eco boutique hotel and resort. It's what a cool thing to do in life, man. Wake up every day and try to give somebody something to look forward to and learn about, and go home to their home, wherever that is, with a little idea of what we're doing to try and create a little bit more of a positive change to the world. So that's really it. This day and age, you get caught in an urban environment and you just watch the news and you're gonna think, man, there's no hope for anything, and it's just all doomed. Being down here in nature, working with it on a daily basis, and working people from all over the world, it gives you hope and it gives you reason to keep trying. And come out here, I'll teach you how to get on a wakeboard, teach you how to ride a kiteboard, foil board, teach you how to hit a ramp for the first time. You create these little small goals that you get to thrive, strive for, and then achieve. All of a sudden you think, man, that wasn't that hard. What could I do next? What could I do next? And next thing you know, you're trying to change the world. So Keys Cable and Other Side Board Sports, it's at Other Side Adventure Park. We also have a shop in Isla Mirada. You're right here on Grassy Key in the city of Marathon. And just down the road, we have Grassy Flats Resort and Beach Club, which is the newest thing that we have. And pretty soon we'll have Bongo's Cafe. We've got Grassy Key Millworks and all of these little businesses that have spun off of it. So it's been a pleasure to get the time to talk to you guys, show you about what we do down here on Grassy Key. We're here 7 days a week, every day of the year except for Christmas. We usually go kite surfing on that day. That's the only holiday we take off. Otherwise, we're here for the tourism. We're here for the hospitality. We're here to show you a good time. We're happy to have you anytime, any day. So mile marker 59, Grassy Key, keyscable.com, grassyflats.com, othersideboardsports.com. My name is Matt Sexton. Hope to see you down here in the Florida Keys. Thanks a lot.